is thinking that they need to sacrifice Jesus type thing, not recognizing that that's Rome's method of operations. And that's not Jesus's philosophy. Jesus was a target. Yeshua was a target for sacrifice. That's not his philosophy. And so they keep associating the sacrifice principle with Yeshua when it should be associated with Rome, who are bloodlusters. They come as the makers or bringers of peace when actually they're the peace breakers. They're showing it openly now because they don't have the time to keep on BSing you. They're doing it openly now. They're calling it mandate.
Mandate.
And mandate is not law. I think y'all better go in your law dictionaries and look up mandate.
Why don't you read it? What does it say in there?
Chicken?
What does it say in Black's Law about a mandate?
Oh, let's go to it. And you know, this is again, Dr. Naila, why they don't teach our people, you know, fundamental laws. Mm-hmm. So mandate is a command, an order, or a direction, written or oral, which court is authorized to give and a person is bound to obey. Mandate is a judicial command or precept proceeding from a court of court or judicial officer directing the proper officer to enforce a judgment, sentence, or decree. A mandate is a precept or an order issued upon the decision of an appeal or a writ of error, directing action to be taken or disposition to be made of case by inferior court. And in some of the state jurisdictions, the name mandate has been substituted for mandamus. Mandate is a substitute for mandamus. Is why you see me all over years talking about for warranto, a writ, an agreement of jurisdiction, and an agreement of mandamus. So as a formal title of that writ, etc. A bailment of property in regard to which the bailee engages to do some act without regard. So it's clearly that it is totally a judicial act from an inferior court not having a constitutional foundation whatsoever. It's a decree made by an incompetent inferior court, logically not Article 3 and logically not constitutional, i.e. mandate.
Okay, so Richard Amonrod basis, can you talk about constructing a lien against corrupted officials?
And this is where, now let's look, this is the point. So for those who comprehend those principles, look up surety bond, write that down, surety bond. The same way that you would issue a writ or a claim against any other insurance bond, etc., is in itself a lis pendens in its nature against someone who trespasses against your right or your estate. Now we're back to the word estate, aren't we? And your status, isn't it? That's called the lien. And guess what happened when a couple of them are lodged against persons who claim to have authority that don't? The insurance companies will no longer back their bond because it will kill the commissioner's office. This is why they don't teach the people that anybody in political position that claim any authority by law must carry a surety or equity bond. And what that lien is a claim against their bond. That's why you do both quo warrantos and abraments of jurisdictions, and you do research on anyone that claims authority because they have an equity bond, make a claim on it. That's a lien.
Can you explain what?
And now you're going to go ahead.
Explain quo warranto.
Quo warranto is what is known as a DOAO, or the authorized legitimate delegation of authority by which an office or an officer holds office, with a time of enactment and a termination time, and is always by law variably constructed under Constitution law by no other methodology. And that's what is known as, when the question comes before any person who claims authority, are you, he or she, an Article 3 judicial constitutional officer? Just that simple. And if they don't answer it, you already know they're a fraud, and they ain't going to answer it because they're actually foreign corporate operatives. That's why they don't teach people to do quo warrantos. And this is back to even when Drew Ali said enforce the Constitution. The more you understand that, the more you will understand when you enforce the Constitution, you're enforcing treaties, which supersede the Constitution. And it's the supreme law of the land. And the judges of every state must abide thereby and must support it. And that includes the judicial officers, the executive, etc., legislative, etc. And any laws of any state to the contrary has no standing whatsoever. That's why it says notwithstanding. So read Article 3 of the Constitution for the United States. Read Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution for the United States. Read Article 6 of the Constitution for the United States. And read Act 6 of the Divine Constitution and Bylaws of the Moorish Divine and National Movement via the Moorish Holy Temple of Science and the Moorish Science Temple of America, and see that they obviously harmonize. And that's as a counter to many of the naysayers that have been infiltrated among us.
Question is, can you explain apostille number 1?
Apostille is generally still you're dealing with jurisdiction. So and this is back to my argument with many people, and many people who keep calling the de facto operatives government. They're seeking for them to give them, or what you call, not unlike say a fee simple type claim or an allodial claim. They have no capacity to exercise it because they're not the people of the land and they're not the legitimate government. The rights of sovereign divine right already belong to the people. This is where the Declaration of Nationality comes from, and this is where you organize, etc., in your judicial operations as justices, executing your right of execution of a state and reversion of a state. And of course, this is where your councils will come in. But those councils must be clear, and they're councils, not so much councils.
Here's a question from L Nucleus Bay. Should Moors be concerned about chakras and crystals?
Isn't that part of African culture? Aren't you going back to your culture on multiple levels? Isn't that your relationship to nature and nature's law? Distinguished from the artificialities that have been imposed upon the people? Just a reminder. So I'm not saying pro or con. I'm saying answer your own questions. It becomes obvious.
Okay, let me see. I thought I asked you this question. Didn't I ask you about the locked up politicians? I don't know whether you answered it.
You know, we didn't go into that. That's what's taking place right now with what you... Now, remember, we were talking earlier, and I think we got distracted with, the multiple levels of the questions and the necessity to actually talk some of the paradigms of the operations. During the Lincoln administration, when they did what is known as the Sine Die action of covert uh, subversion and misprision, which would include the assassination of Lincoln, which is simply a part of this construction. And they under de facto operations enforced the doctrine of discovery and the unum sanctum operations under the Circle Church and Chancery. And this is where those operatives of the Bar Association are actually running all the courts, etc. And so when you're looking at, you understand also that during the Lincoln administration, he set up a small cadre of generals, etc., within the military to protect the Constitution and treaty operations or the legitimate operations of the United States Republic, and that operation is called Q. And I'm sure that many of you heard this word Q being thrown around in the recent years and thinking that it's a new thing. Well, that started during the Lincoln administration. That Q operation was assigned to Donald J. Trump by the part of the military that has maintained loyalty to the Republic order of legitimate business at Morocco, etc., under the United States or States United, the Republic, distinguished from the U.S. democracy platform of the dark priesthood of the Circle Church and Chancery. And so Donald Trump was assigned to restore as a figurehead, because there's really a lot of other people behind him, the order of the Republic. And logically, by virtue of that, the treaty enforcement and everything else to the true heirs of the land comes into play. And I remind Moors of that. It's not so much the Constitution as they see on the surface, it's what that really implies. And your mind needs to go back to the issue that all treaties and agreements entered into before the adoption of that Constitution shall be binding upon the United States, etc., as well as under the Confederation. And all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. Once you start seeing that in Article 6, you start recognizing the implications. And of course, you understand why some of your so-called black civilized or civil rights leaders and none of your politicians will make emphasis on that, nor will they make emphasis what I read to you earlier from the treaty book, etc. And why constitutional principles are always presented to our people from the perspective that it doesn't apply to us, when in fact it's a key tie to the enforcement of the treaties. But, and it's the supreme law of the land.
But with regard to these politicians, I'm
they're being arrested.
Yeah, that was the
under
question.
Misprision and treason. Now look at at these terms and write these down.
But why are we still seeing them?
Yeah, but I'm just CGI and other things, in clones and doubles.
All right,
let's look at mandates distinguished from supreme law. Let's look at Constitution and treaty obligations enforcements. And these things you write down because we're not going to go into all these things. Let's look at the motu proprio presented by Pope Francis in 2013. Let's look at world government corporations that went bankrupt in these late years, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. And you'll see that the United States is prominently listed that they're bankrupt. Look at the meeting that the Pope had with so-called religious leaders from all persuasions, etc., Islam, so-called Judaism, and Christianity. And you noticed how all of them were kissing his finger. And you want to understand the dogma situation. And their promise to stop exercising the doctrine of discovery, which has still been enforced, that our people been falsely told was racism and prejudice to cover it up. And this is why people that keep on promoting the race paradigm are frauds, not because I say so, because when you know the real history, you already know they're in place to divert your attention from the reality of the doctrine of discovery and unum sanctum operations. And therefore, our people have been continuously being injured. And of course, this is back to the issue of my concern with people who have this knowledge. Get out in the field, get your hands dirty, take off them royal clothes, and start liberating your people. Like Noble Drew Ali said, with all these sheiks and sheikesses and grand sheiks, he says, the hedges and the highways, which means take it to the people. You know, excuse me. Go ahead, Dr. Nair.
Well, so I need you to weigh in on this because there's a comment here. T is not a more, B either. So, wait a minute, let me finish before you say it. T is not a more, B either. So I'm thinking that it is like double teaming against the Moors. Look at what's happening. And then the other follow-up is that this individual says, my reading as well, Taj confuses on this. So the fact that I'm just saying,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm putting them back both there because you know what they're saying.
I'll explain. Go ahead.
When you talk about them being being assigned, they're saying, and with good reason, that neither of them are Moors.
Legitimate statement. Go ahead.
And we've even said that.
Statement.
We've even said that with regard to where do we figure in
legitimate statement
to the fight that is over our estate.
Legitimate statement.
Okay, so weigh in.
And legitimate statement and legitimate critique.
Okay.
Now you got to look at what you call political chess. You make a move, Rome makes a move. All right? What is it that Trump's assigned to do? To restore the republic. This is on their part with the military, because the nations won't trade with them anymore, and they won't buy U.S. Treasury bonds anymore, which are the foundation for their economic system that made the Jesuit Order's Federal Reserve what is known as the reserve currency for the world, a status which has been lost. However, you're in flux. When I say you're in flux, because they have been controlling under feudal law your estate. This is back to you comprehending that you've been under occupation. Therefore, you have interest. You have interest because they're occupying your land. They're occupying your estate. They've stolen your gold and silver. They're operating on your land in breach of treaty, etc. By default, you have interest. However, as we said in opening, they've been doing what? Pretending to be Americans, haven't they? And they've been battling over your estate for power over your estate. Meanwhile, you're supposed to have been standing up and starting to take your places among the affairs of men, not forgetting that they're de facto, which I've always said they're de facto. I understand and comprehend exactly what I've been saying. What you're looking at is chess. And guess what? By default, some of our people have been the pawns, and I'm saying by fact, I'm telling many of you, step off the board. Observe them battling over your estate and take your places among the affairs of men.
So basically, even though they're battling over
your estate, it affects you.
So what is our position as having not taken our place in the affairs of men? What is the move now in this chess game for us? Because there's just two sides and we're the third side.
Exactly. So now you're supposed to have been studying, haven't you? Isn't that what Drew Ali set up? Can't say that he didn't, because he certainly did.
Well, yeah, he did.
And then he said, come all ye Asiatics of North America and hear the truth about your nationality and your birthrights. You're not Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian. Come and link yourselves back with the families of nations. Now, look at Act 1, of the divine constitution and bylaws. He says the chairman and moderator is put in power to make law and to enforce law if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known by the members of the Moorish Temple of Science, i.e. Moorish Science Temple of America. Is that not what's written? So meanwhile, while our people are in a learning stage, those occupiers are fighting over your estate, hoping that you don't wake up. But when it all boils down, when they restore the republic, guess what? They're restoring the obligations of the treaty. I suggest that you read civil orders issued to Barack H. Obama by Pope Francis. And then you'll understand why I've been saying what I'm saying. Trump is assigned. I told you that. It's a chess move. And our people are behind the curve. The heirs of the estate are behind the curve. All this time while they're battling, you should be studying and doing your shadow work. And nature will take care of the rest.
I would think, though, in this battle that's going on, if Mr. T's side is...
So you don't look at that. They're two sides of the same coin.
No, but I know that. If he and whoever is with him should prevail, that we have a better opportunity or chance of restoring
that's the chess move.
Our estate, because of and the reason why I say that is because of some of what was done while he was still in office that many Moors were not aware of, that he's actually
those executive orders.
He had made executive orders. He had sent information. I have copies of letters that he sent telling Moors to come get their stuff.
Exactly.
That they were entitled to it.
Exactly.
That I saw them. I have copies.
Say public for our people, what can you lose? What do you have to lose? You keep voting for the Ku Klux Klan, i.e. the Democratic Party, which means the cabal. And it doesn't mean that the rhinos of the Republican Party are any better.
Right, because you got them on from both sides.
This is why they've all been countering him. That's not defending Trump. It's